Hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Actually, I can't see the chat. Here we go. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello.
And hello to my wonderful guests, Tori and Matt. Welcome so much. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad to have you here. So,
Pleasure.
how about
Thanks for
telling
having us.
people who you are? In
Go,
case they
Tori.
don't know you, which I'm sure they do, but just in case.
Well, I'm Tori from the channel Tori Talks, and I'm a fantasy nerd and author, and that's me.
Oh,
Yeah, and
sorry.
I'm Matt. Matt on Books is my channel where I don't make videos anymore. Really, I do generally every Sunday. I do a thing called the Sunday Pub, which is a live stream where random friends join me and we chat about whatever the hell we feel like chatting about. And other than that, my main function on BookTube is to be a guest on other people's streams and share my copious opinions.
Now, I'm not sure who that is. Hello, Rogue. Hello to Thornall, Terry, Pebble, and everyone else. It's lovely to have you here.
Rogue is a Thornall and Terry also are regular Sunday pubbers. Yeah, exactly. Jeroen just asked why my channel is hosting it at the same time. It's a feature of Restream that we actually just discovered. You will now find this stream on my channel, on Kath's channel, and on Tori's channel. But it puts all of them together so the chats are all in one place.
Which is awesome. I think
It's
that's
cool.
a very cool idea.
Yeah.
And hello to all of you who've come in when I wasn't expecting it. Yeah, I'm trying to keep up with the chat as well as everything else, but thank you everyone for coming. I really do appreciate you all. And I'm hoping this is going to be a really fun discussion. We are waiting on Alan at some point.
Alan's always late. It's part of Alan's brand to be late.
He said he's solo parenting at the moment, so
yes,
give him a little
putting
break.
the baby down. So I give him. He's got a good reason actually.
Joanna's here.
Yes, hello,
Surav stopped by, but said that he might not be able to stay long. I don't know how we're going to have a Malazan discussion without Surav in the chat, because Surav is the guy I know who remembers
everything,
details better than anybody.
Yes, he is. He's our go-to, isn't he, on the Fireside Discord, because he just seems to know everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that is very generous, Alex. Thank you.
Is that actually a super chat though?
Oh, that's what it says. It says, yeah. Look, I don't know. I actually don't have what do you call it?
Monetization?
Yes, thank you. I took it off. I took it off my channel a long time ago. And
if you don't have monetization, then it's not a super chat.
Yeah, that's what my understanding is, that if you're not monetized, you can't get super chats, which is fine by me. Exactly. But anyway, Joanna is always picking at Alan.
Because it's so much fun.
Yeah, which it is. Yeah.
It's good for him.
So anyway, I thought how we would start is perhaps just have basically I wanted to ask how you guys found Deadhouse Gates after Gardens of the Moon, and perhaps also talk about your experience with Malazan so far. We're going to start first with non-spoilers, and I would ask everyone in the chat as well not to mention any spoilers beyond Deadhouse Gates. You can talk about this book, but nothing else for those who haven't read the other books.
Kath, Alan is backstage. You just need to add him.
Thank you.
He just said in the chat. There he is.
Hello.
Hey, Alan.
I'm sorry, Alan, I didn't see the private chat.
That was fun. I heard all that slander in the chat. I'm not sleeping. My wife.
That's what we were hoping.
No, my wife left. Like not for good. Just like
what? Christina left you?
I know. I had to put the baby down for his nap, and so.
Okay.
Welcome, Alan. It's really nice to have you here with us.
Thank you for having
the rest of us.
Good to see you, mate.
So how about also perhaps letting people know in the chat who you are, because we've kind of introduced ourselves. I'm sure everyone knows you anyway, but just in case.
Oh, me? Sorry. I thought you were talking
Yes.
about everybody. Yeah. Sorry. I'm Alan from the library.
We were on time, so we already did this.
I know. Alan from the Library of Alexandria. I am a high school Latin teacher and longtime Malazan fan. I read Malazan for the first time 2007. Oh, I read Gardens of the Moon for the first time 2007. So it's been a hot minute. But I read the whole series on BookTube. So 4 years ago or so.
I actually just watched your video again because I've seen it before on Deadhouse Gates. In fact, I watched all of your videos. I thought I'd get ready for
one of my first videos on BookTube ever.
Yeah, because it goes back to like 5 years ago, and I thought, wow, that's incredible. You know, I actually was asking everyone how they, or at what point they are in their Malazan journey, and in particular, how did they find reading Deadhouse Gates after Gardens of the Moon? So since you were talking, Alan, why don't you tell us?
It was super different. I mean, I don't generally like desert settings. Like, I'm not a desert setting guy. I never played Al Qadim or Dark Sun when I played D&D. I don't really like the deserts. In my class right now, we're in the hinterlands of Persia following Alexander, and it's just a bunch of desert. And I'm just like, can we go back to Greece, please? But it was an adjustment trying to get, after being in Darujistan with those particular characters in the first one. I'm glad that Erikson left us Fiddler and Callum. And I mean, I could say Crocus, but I'm not super.
You don't need to mention Crocus.
Not super excited about that one.
Hey.
Crocus is a waste of words.
No.
I'm glad he left us with some regular characters or some of the former characters, but it didn't take much time to kind of acclimate and get involved in the new storyline. And as a lover of military fantasy, like being on BookTube, I try to pretend, and it's because people like Joanna like judge me for it, but I try to act like military fantasy isn't my favorite subgenre, but
it is.
It just is. Like
we all, Alan, I'll let you in on a secret. We all know this. You don't have to try and fake.
I'm realizing it to myself because I'm reading Shadows of the Aft right now,
know.
And that's some good stuff. And I think that's what I like about Malazan so much. I like all the military conflict, and this one has more than does Gardens of the Moon. So I like this book better than Gardens of the Moon, even though I think I like the character set, like, the collection of characters better in Gardens of the Moon than I do as a whole. And because I like very few characters in Deadhouse Gates, but I like the story of Deadhouse Gates better. And I like this and House of Chains. I like the story that this arc tells better than, and I think I'm in the minority, better than the Memories of Ice Gardens of the Moon storyline.
Me too.
Matt's like,
Yeah, I'm a Seven Cities girl. I definitely prefer those. Yeah.
Very cool. And I like Toblakai and Liamon in this one. I don't later, but I do in this one. So
Okay. All right. Well, Matt, what about you?
I had a weird Malazan experience in the plague year. I read all 10 books in 3 or 4 months. And I often say Stephen Erikson saved my life. My mental health was not doing so great during that year. Everything bad that could happen happened. And reading Malazan kept me from worrying about things that were very bad for me to be worrying about, which was awesome. Since then, I've read up to Reaper's Gale, or up to the end of Reaper's Gale again. I'm in the middle of a reread. The first read of Deadhouse Gates, I think I was pretty lost because, Gardens of the Moon is not, I wouldn't say it's a typical fantasy novel, but it's a much more straightforward linear story with less happening than Deadhouse Gates is. You know, it's still not that linear and it has a hell of a lot happening, but Deadhouse Gates is much more twisty and complex, and there's so many things happening. So it took me a while to get into Deadhouse Gates. And I think I was also just like the very first time I read it, I think I was also a little irritated at Steve for like getting me so into so many characters and then taking almost all of them away from me. You know, I was like,
yeah,
dude, can you give me all those people back, not just a couple of them? And then the next book he does, and then the next book he takes them away again, and then the next book he takes everybody away, and that's when I really wanted to punch him in the throat. But yeah, Deadhouse Gates took a little getting used to. I do like desert settings. I'm like the anti-Ellen here. I like desert settings a lot. I grew up in Australia, and I've gone camping many times in the desert and hiking, and I've had heat stroke I don't know how many times. I actually quite like desert settings, so I thought this was interesting, and I thought a lot of the, like, also if you look at real world history, like desert people tend to be really big fans of fanatical religious wars. So I thought that was a pretty good sort of theme throughout Deadhouse Gates, and just some awesome characters. Although, like I said, you know, if the book didn't have Crocus in it, it wouldn't be any different.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and the military fantasy stuff, I'm with Alan 100% on that. Like, I'm a Glenn Cook fan. The military fantasy stuff in this book is probably, I'd say, the best in all 10 books. Like the especially the second half of the book, the stuff that's going on in there as far as military fantasy is stunning. And there were so many moments where I was just like, what the hell is going on? Or cheering or whatever. It's amazing. I love it. Great book.
Tori.
Okay, so Deadhouse, as I've said many times, is my favorite fantasy book of all time. And I was handed Gardens of the Moon brand spanking new into epic fantasy by a friend of mine. I had read 2 other epic fantasy books at the time that were nowhere near the, like, just scope. I mean, which is kind of like almost everything. But Gardens, I was like 20 when I read it the first time, and I had no idea what was going on, but I was so mind blown by it and so intrigued by the idea of, like, Erikson kind of blew my mind open with the idea of what fantasy could be completely. And I was so intrigued by it. I liked some of the characters in Gardens of the Moon. I was intrigued enough that I was like, I want to keep going. And after I got over the initial shock of, wait a second, what happened when we go from Gardens of the Moon to Deadhouse Gates, I'm a very character-driven reader, and as soon as I found the characters of Deadhouse Gates, I was so immersed in this story. I love it so much. I'm also a massive military storytelling in general reader and fan. So, and interestingly enough, to kind of go the opposite way of what Matt said, I had a way easier time following Deadhouse Gates than I did Gardens of the Moon. Way easier time in terms of the storyline, even then. And I just reread it for the first time last fall, and was just, it reminded me all over again why this book is my favorite fantasy book. It's an incredible book. So,
well, for me, when I started Deadhouse Gates, I was actually disappointed. I was like, where are my favorite characters? I'm in this new place with all these bizarre new characters in this strange world. And I actually didn't like it for about, I don't know, about 10, 20%. And then, of course, the story started unfolding, and I realized, wow, this is so much better even than Gardens of the Moon, which I loved. I thought it was a great story. I loved so many aspects of it, but I just didn't like being in this new world, knowing nothing and trying to work out what is going on. I've never thought of myself as a military fantasy fan as such, but it's not that I dislike military fantasy. It's just not something that I've thought about before. But this book, well, it was my best book of 2024. I think that says a lot. And I suspect it could be one of my best books for many years to come. I don't know yet, but I guess we will see. So
Can I say just really quickly, because people have been talking about it in the chat, and I think we figured it out. If you're watching this on my channel or Tori's channel, you are in a separate chat. Now, the software Restream puts the chat together for us, but it doesn't put it together for you. So if you all want to be in the same chat, go to Kathy's channel.
Oh, yep. I see. Okay.
That would probably be best. If everybody was in Kathy's channel, then you can see all of the chat as well as we can see all the chat.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, we just figured out that can happen, that you can see the stream on other channels, but I guess there's going to be some limitations to that. Well, the next question I was going to ask, and maybe we should move on to spoilers now, because honestly, there's only so much you can say before you need to get into the nitty-gritty.
What are you doing watching this if you haven't read the book?
Yeah, honestly, you should not be watching this if you have not read the book.
This is a spoiler in the thumbnail.
And also, please read the book.
Do read the book.
Please read the book.
If you haven't read the book, fuck off now, but read the book.
And I also should mention that whatever spoilers we will say won't include anything in the future books for anyone who's coming into the chat now. Now, I just thought there was a question. Yes, I am planning to read everything because that's
all
the kind of person I am.
27, I think, books.
Yeah, I'm going to read them all, and then I'll probably restart Malazan all over again because that's just who I am. And I've got to admit, this is a series that I think I will pick up so much more on a reread because I know I've missed so much. I'm currently up to, I just finished Bone Hunters and I'm about to start Reaper's Gale in the next few days. So, yeah.
I wanted to say that as someone who is in the middle of my first reread, a lot of people make it sound like you can't read this series only once and enjoy it. That you have to reread it.
No,
and that's completely wrong.
No.
My first read, I loved it. Right, it was great, but there is so much going on. There's so much deep stuff, and figuring out so many things takes so much cognitive load on my first read that on my second read, that cognitive load was a lot lighter. That I could then understand other things that I'd missed or get deeper into things I'd only partially understood or whatever.
Like Divas and Soul Taken and Warrens and...
The books are super rereadable, but you don't have to.
Yes. But there's a lot to take in and a lot to try to comprehend because the books are not like other fantasy where you have things explained to you. It's piecemeal. You're given pieces throughout the books. I feel like now up to 6, I have a better understanding of certain things, but I'm sure I'm going to learn a lot more. Anyway, all right.
And a lot of stuff you fly over as well. I didn't realize until my reread that the best explanation of what Warrens are is in chapter 2 of Gardens of the Moon.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
The best explanation in the entire thing of what Warrens are is chapter 2, Gardens of the Moon. Tattersail is thinking to herself, and it's like one sentence, but it basically explains what Warrens are enough that you get it. And I don't remember reading it my first read. And the second time I was like, what? She said, did someone add this to my book? I totally don't remember it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think there's a lot of things like that you would have missed on a first read, but you're right. Yep. You do not have to reread this series to enjoy it. This is my first read through, and I am blown away by how much I love it. I didn't expect to.
Wait, this is your first? You haven't read the series yet?
No, I haven't finished. I'm up to...
I haven't either.
7. Yeah.
So you're on Reaper's Gale.
I'm on Reaper's Gale. I'm starting it in a couple of days.
And Tori, where are you? House of Chains? Memories of Ice?
I'm currently rereading Memories of Ice. I will be continuing and finishing, but I have read up to the beginning of Midnight Tides.
Word.
So
Yeah, that is where I made it to on my first
Yeah.
first pass of Malazan. I made it to Midnight Tides and then put it in my trunk and forgot about it for 6 months.
Oh, I forgot to say that
not
my first pass, I DNF'd Gardens of the Moon after about 200 pages, and then I tried again and DNF'd it again about the same place.
Really?
And then the pandemic hit, and I read all 10 in 3-4 months.
Well, I have been loving it so much that it's been a struggle not to just read them all one after the other. But
Yeah.
I started reviewing the books, and now I feel like, okay, I've got to take my time. And in a way, it's actually better because I get to really think about the books before I move on to the next one. But it's
Worth it.
hard. It's hard. I just want to jump straight into the next book. Anyway, all right, so let's move on to perhaps talking spoilers. So anyone who hasn't read Deadhouse Gates, you should leave now and come back and watch this another time. Oh, yeah. Yeah. All right. So where should we start? This is interesting. I've been thinking about where to start. How about
We can't start with Coltane, otherwise Alan will just
no. We'll
give
get
us
to
a lecture for the
Coltane.
next hour.
We'll get to Coltane. That is something I want to talk about. How about we start with what did you like about the book and what did you dislike about it? And we'll start with you, Tori.
Well, it's going to be a really long list on the front half and a very short list on the back half. One of my books that I really, really love, almost to a T, have the same, at least a common theme in them, and that is self-sacrifice and loyalty. And I feel like Deadhouse is such a, I mean, it's literally everywhere. I love exploration of kind of survival mentality and how brilliantly Erikson handles so many different types and levels of traumatic experience in this book. I love the military aspect of it so much. I do also like desert settings, so that was an easy one for me. But this is a book that the first time I read it, it was one of those things where, kind of like Matt, I read it at a point in my life where I needed to read it the first time. And a lot of the themes and storylines in this book really spoke to me, and kind of it was healing in a way. And I'll get into that more as we get into the characters. But it's weirdly, people think I'm really weird for saying this whenever I do, but this is a comfort read for me, which is odd because it is very dark.
It's cathartic.
It's very cathartic. Yeah. And I feel like of the 4 books that I've read, and I like all 4 of them for different reasons, Deadhouse just is in a league of its own for the catharsis for me, at least.
Yeah. Alan.
I thought Tori was going to keep talking, so I.
Hey, Matt. Let's go to Matt and we'll come back to you, Alan.
I can say one tiny thing that I noticed on my read through, which is that the plot does meander a bit in Deadhouse, but that didn't bother me because I love it. So.
All right, I'm good.
There you go.
Go, Alan.
Okay. Did you ask like, or did you also ask don't like? Or you just ask like?
Both.
Okay, cool. Here are things that I don't like. I don't like really boring people wandering around in the desert staring at things.
Okay, he's starting with the okay.
So
chose violence.
Erikson does this, but he does not do this nearly as much as Esselmont, and Cook does it too. Because I'm rereading Black Company. I don't like where we're in a POV and they use a lot of pronouns so that you can't tell what's going on. Like, oh, they remember. Oh, it's them. And it's like, you know who it is. Can you please just tell us? Like, Shadow Games of the Black Company get so confused. I don't even know who they're talking about. Like, there's like 8 people there. It's like, oh, they. Which they? Like, which one of the 8 people is it?
Yeah.
And Esselmont does it in Crimson Guard, to where I'm just like, what are you doing, man? So there's a lot of that with Akarim and Mappo, where it's just like, can can you just tell us, like, you obviously know what's happening. Can you please just make it less confusing?
Yeah.
So I don't like that. I do not like any of the prison camp escapees. Like, every one of them are unpleasant and deserve each other, except for Colt, who
Yeah.
Isn't
Colt is
a prison
cool.
escapee.
Yeah.
A moment of
He
silence
wasn't-
for Colt.
yeah, oh, he's
Yeah.
a rescue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. He gets sent to rescue them. Pour one
But
out for
what
Colt. Yeah.
what I like the history aspect and the historian aspect and the military engagements, the fighting withdrawals. I learned what sappers
You like the
were.
potsherds.
Yeah. Yeah. I talk about potsherds in my class all the time.
All 12 million of them.
There's so many potsherds.
But
Shit.
uh,
Yeah.
I
I had
like the
to look
fighting
that up to make
Do I?
sure I knew I was reading
Yeah.
the right thing, because I thought, hang on, what is that? But yeah,
It's-
very.
I don't know why they can't just say
Yes.
pot shards, because that's what they are.
Yeah.
I learned what sappers were from this book, and since then, since reading this book, first of all, I teach all my students what sappers are when we talk about sieges in Alexander the Great. And
Sappers are the best.
oh, for sure. And this is all before I started teaching, but since teaching, I have come to appreciate this stuff even more, because now I've seen, like, historical fighting withdrawals, and so it actually weirdly, a lot of stuff in Erikson helps me teach sieges and helps me teach fighting withdrawals, because there's just big examples of tactical brilliance and people can say that, well, that's not realistic that they would survive. Okay, read Caesar or Alexander the Great, and luck, the role that luck played in both of their lives and military victories is insane. So people just wouldn't believe the stuff that really happens.
It's clear that Erikson knows history pretty well.
Yeah.
No,
Like, he's not just making this stuff up, pulling it out of his ass.
Archaeologist as
Yeah,
well.
which I love. And I like Fiddler, and I like the stuff with the whirlwind. And I like, Shaik and her minions and stuff. And Callum's journey's fine. Like, his storyline is fine. I don't really like when people are, like, off by themselves. It's not super interesting to me. It's like, get a secondary character, please.
Kalam is kind of an off by himself kind of guy, though.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I just don't like reading about him.
Sure.
So I like Fiddler, but I don't really like his companions, and I certainly don't like Iskril. I don't think Iskril is funny at all. I hate him.
Isn't that funny? Because most people adore him, think he's hilarious.
No, that's not true.
No?
Okay,
I'm mistaken. Everything
people are very split on Iskril Pust.
In the minority of liking Iskril Plus. But anyway, it's the military stuff that I like a lot. And also the themes that I like the most in books are, like, loyalty and duty, and that's
justice
and justice. Yeah, this is why Sam Vimes is my favorite character of all time. Coltane, the idea that Coltane is a conquered person, like, Coltane is the leader of a conquered people, and yet his word is his bond. Like, he has said, okay, like, we lost, remember the Malazan Empire, I am gonna get these people home. Now's the time to run, bud. Like, run and join the other opposition. But he is loyal to do what?
That's what makes him so wonderful as a
Correct.
character, is that he is a conquered people, and yet he values loyalty above everything else.
Yeah, which is
I didn't want to interrupt you, sorry, but yeah.
And this was one of the things I kept thinking about all the time. But I know, like, 0.05% as much about the Roman Empire as Alan does. But I kept thinking, don't I vaguely know that this also happened a lot in the Roman Empire? That they conquered a people, and then some of those conquered people ended up in very key positions in the Roman.
Well, the Romans, unlike a lot of ancient people at the time, the Romans did not obliterate their enemies unless they were corporal forced to. I mean, you just had to come into the Roman yoke, and a lot of times you were, client kingdoms or whatever, and they would elevate talented people to. Now, I mean, later it's better because there's a ton of racism at the start. Like the Gauls don't even get to be senators till Claudius. But yeah, like Emperor Septimius Severus was African, and Trajan was from Hispania, like he was Spanish. So yeah, that happened. That also happened plenty in Greek history, like Darius versus Alexander. His greatest general was a Greek. So yeah.
I'd like to mention again, just because I see a lot of people in the chat, if you are not on Kathy's channel, if you're on my channel or Tori's channel, you are in the chat by yourself or with very few people. So it's probably best to watch this on Kathy's channel and not our channels, because that puts everybody in the same chat. It's a weirdness of restream that we were not aware of.
Yeah, I'm running the actual live on my channel.
Yeah,
that's right, because the chat on Kathy's channel looks empty too, but that's because people are commenting on other channels.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, sorry, guys.
And for us, it puts everybody together in one chat, but for you, if you're watching, it doesn't. So maybe just go join Kathy's channel. Anyway.
Yeah. All right, Matt.
Like and dislike. I intensely disliked spending time with Fellison. But I think that's pretty universal. I don't hate her as a Fellison. Yeah, it's pretty universal, actually. That one is not very divisive. It's pretty universal. Everybody kind of hates Fellison. I don't hate her as a character, but I did not enjoy spending time with her even for a second, because she's just a horrible, horrible person for good reasons, but still horrible.
One sec. I think I have to tell people my channel name so that they can find it. You keep talking. I'll put it in.
If you look for Nerdy Kathy with an I, you'll find her.
I will put a link to that channel in my version of the live stream so everybody can find it.
Yeah. What did I like though? I like I said earlier, I like the desert setting. I like the fanatical rebellion idea. I freaking love Coltane and the Wiccans just in general. I've got a real thing for Native Americans. I used to be quite involved with a lot of Native American stuff when I lived in the US, and the Wiccans are kind of Native American. They're that kind of tribe. And just so much of the writing is so insanely good. Like, how can it be that a guy that has basically 10 very short lines in the entire book is almost everybody's favorite guy in the entire book, Coltane, right? He's almost not present, but you feel his presence through everybody else around him so much, and their reactions to him and obedience of him and his tactical genius and all of that you don't really need him standing there talking much to be an amazing character. The sappers in this book are, I think, better than the sappers in the rest of the series. Like, this is the place where the sappers are just insanely cool. And they're cool all the way through, but like there are so many scenes in here with the sappers where you're just like, oh my God, you guys are nuts and awesome.
And awesome. I thought that in Gardens of the Moon as well, what they did was fantastic, but this is where they cemented their place.
It's over the top.
Yeah, I just
it's totally over the top. Like the sappers save the day over and over again.
When they blow the river is
blowing the river and burying themselves on the ramp. Those two bits are just like amazing. You guys are absolutely insane, but I love you.
Yeah.
The whole thing, I know it's not necessarily the most popular plot line, but the whole thing with Kalam and Lasine, I loved it mainly because of how it ended. And we can get into that in more detail later, but it reminded me.
Disagree.
I know.
My time.
I've seen your, I've seen numerous discussions with you about this book. I am aware, but it reminded me really, really strongly of one of my favorite wuxia movies, Hero. And it's basically the plot of, I mean, the book came first, but it's basically the plot of Hero is Kalam's Lacine assassination plot is the plot of Hero. And it ends in the same way for the same reason, which pretty amazing. There's a lot of really cool world building as well, which I love in this book, like with Soul Taken and Diverse all over the place, and what the hell is going on with the Azath houses, and
I still don't.
riding through different warrens. And I mean, for those who haven't read further, I won't spoil anything, but there are a number of pretty big deal moments in this book that become even bigger deal moments connected to later books. So it's building up a whole lot of stuff that becomes really, really relevant later.
Yeah, Brian.
Things I hated. Bidethol. I hated Bidethol.
Who's Bidethol again? I can't
Bidethol's
remember.
not even in it.
You mean No, you mean Beneth?
Do you mean?
Oh, no. I'm confusing later books.
Bidethol's in House of Chains.
Yeah, Bidethol's in
That's what
House
I
of Chains.
thought. Yeah.
I also hate Bidethol, but
He is mentioned. He is mentioned at the end.
He's mentioned. He's in the background in this book, but he's not really a character in this book.
Oh, Bidethol. He is with. Yeah. Okay, I know who he is. Yeah.
Yep.
I don't want to spoil it for anyone.
No.
So,
No.
Yeah.
He is mentioned in Deadhouse Gates at the end, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Other stuff that I didn't like. There were definitely.
I have plenty to say on that comment.
There were definitely large portions of the book where I was like, so we're wandering through the sand again. What else are we doing?
Looking at old stuff.
We're kind of wandering through the sand still.
Yes. I have to.
You know, there was a lot of sand wandering.
Yeah, I have to
And
agree.
that got kind of old and tiring.
But I don't know about you, but when we got to the chain of dogs, man, they could have wandered the desert for the rest of the book, all of the book, and I would have been happy because that was.
Yeah, that's not the sand wandering I'm talking about.
I know.
I'm talking about more like Fellison's group and Fiddler and whatever.
Hold on.
They're just bits where
Kathy,
they're just
did you say
wandering
you don't
through
like
the
Chain of
sand.
Dogs?
I'm sorry.
Did you say
No, she was saying that the
She
chain of
wanted-
dogs was
I
wandering
loved
through the
it.
sand.
It's my favorite
but
part
it was
of the
awesome.
whole book.
I thought you were saying when they started
No,
the Chain of Dogs, I'd watch a Karim and Mappo walk in the desert forever because I hated the Chain of Dogs, and I was
No. The
I don't even
reverse.
I don't know where we're gonna go from there. Like,
No. I mean, the chain of dogs.
Alan's just going to hang up.
Yeah, no, sorry. The chain of dogs was, for me, mind-blowing. I think it is one of the best pieces of writing I have read in years.
I completely
So
agree.
many books.
Yep.
I was a mess at the end of it. And
The culmination of the Chain of Dogs is one of the most traumatic things I've ever read in a fantasy book.
I
Oh
felt
my
like
God.
my heart was ripped out and then stomped all over. And it's been 9-10 months since I've read it, and I still can't think about it without getting emotional.
Reading
And
the
that
Chain
says
of Dogs,
everything. Yeah.
it was having not like I hadn't read a ton of like fantasy like widely by this point. Like I picked up Gardens of the Moon on a lark because I'm like, oh, I read the back. The cover wasn't interesting, but I'm like, oh, okay, this back looks cool. And so reading Deadhouse Gates, and I've read a lot of stuff that doesn't do things that I expect it to do since then. But reading Deadhouse Gates for the first time, not having read fantasy very widely, and seeing how the Chain of Dogs ends is not how. It's just not how that ends. Like that's just it just doesn't end like that. Like
You just don't do that to a reader.
nothing I have read up to this point says that this is the way after spending all of this time, because there were plenty of times to do what happened there. Like why did we it just doesn't happen. And so I was that was where that was the moment. The end of the Chain of Dogs was the moment that I was completely sold on Malazan. And to this day, it is one of my favorite scenes it's one of my favorite military scenes ever, like of all time. And is one of the
and
best.
not only military scenes though, like character scenes.
For sure.
Like you've got Pormqual, you've got Malacrel, you've got Squint, you've got Colton, you've got all these characters in there that are just amazing.
Sure, but the end of that is just
I have never wanted to see a character beat to death more than Pormqual.
Oh my God, yes.
Pormqual is the worst.
Idiot.
Yeah, well, he did it to his own. That is what is unforgivable.
Well, and also, he doesn't even have the balls to actually be evil. Like, I can respect Malacrel more because he's actually evil. He's a bad guy. Pormqual is a coward. He's a fool, and that's basically it. He's a coward and a fool who has too much power. And
I think this is like the culmination of that storyline. There's a lot of things in this book that have stuck with me, but the culmination of that storyline, I mean, I read Deadhouse for the first time, I think 12 years ago. And this book single-handedly made me want to be an epic fantasy writer in a way that I had never, like, I loved fantasy prior to this, but that was like my journey to, I want to write, like that was like my pie in the sky. Like I want to know what it feels like to write epic fantasy because of this book.
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's just this has been one of my biggest influences in writing for over a decade, easily.
Look, it's not a perfect book. I'm not going to say that there aren't issues with some of it, such as look at this wonderful structure in the desert.
Oh my God, we found more potsherds.
But overall, by the time I got to the end of this book, I was sold on this series. I knew that this series was for me. Whereas after Gardens of the Moon, I was still undecided. I thought it's only the first book. I need to read a bit more, but Deadhouse Gates sold this whole series for me. And I haven't been disappointed since, but nothing or very few books have that kind of emotional impact. And honestly, I cried my eyes out reading that last part. And I thought, I can't remember the last time I cried so much over a book. I was telling everyone who was coming into the house about it that they had to read it. And I think that just says everything about the impact this book has on you. And we will get to the Chain of Dogs a little bit later, perhaps.
I'm trying to figure out what I'm wrong about. Like, so what have I said? What have I said is wrong? We're talking about Chain of Dogs. What am I wrong about yet?
Who said that? I didn't see that.
Erikson.
Like what am I wrong about?
I mean, Alan's wrong about a lot of things, but I don't remember him saying anything he's wrong about. Like,
I don't know what that's about.
This is the things that what I like most about military fantasy, and this is what I like about military history, is generals figuring out how people are going to win, and like general versus general, tactic versus tactic, and just the tactics that are used on the Chain of Dogs. And it's the same thing with sieges. And Adrian Tchaikovsky does this in Shadows of the App. Just like, how are they going to get out of it? How is each side going to win? And and then someone's got to move, and then someone's got to counter move. And I just love all that. I love.
Well, I think that's
the thing that stunned me. Actually, sorry, Tori, just quickly. No, it stunned me over and over again how Erikson could convince me that it was hopeless, even though he had already shown me that they found a solution. But here I am, convinced again that they're totally screwed, that there's nothing they can do, and then they come up with something brilliant. And they win another day.
And I think it speaks to, for me at least, one of the things I can point to between Gardens and Deadhouse that was a big difference is, like, it's not that there isn't tension in Gardens of the Moon, but Deadhouse to me is a masterclass in building tension throughout an epic fantasy story, and how my heart was in my throat for most of the second 2/3 of Deadhouse Gates. And it's just the emotional control that Erikson has in that story, I think, is really, really brilliant. And I've very rarely seen it done to that level in anything else.
He's a master at the human condition, I think,
Yeah.
at exploring different personalities who have to face things like trauma or death or disloyalty or betrayal. He deals with a lot of the emotions, the height of emotions, I should say. And there's not a lot of authors who actually can nail them, who can
Right.
actually make you feel what these characters feel, And
Yeah.
this is a book and a series which has hundreds of characters.
Yeah.
And
And
I
it never feels like it's meant to be, because I've read so many books where authors just bring the themes and things in with a bludgeon and they're like smacking you in the face with it. Erikson does it in such a way where he allows you to come into the story, be immersed, and just walk alongside the characters. He doesn't tell you what to think about anything, which I love. I love that aspect of it.
That's my favorite thing about this series is we're not spoon-fed anything. We are required to work it out as we go, like a mystery, like a puzzle. And I like
there's also no preaching. Like Erikson obviously has a lot of big issues in his books. He's talking about a lot of horrible things and horrible attitudes of people and isn't humanity horrible in this way and that way and whatever. But he's not slapping you with it and he's not preaching at you about it. He's presenting something and you can start thinking whatever you want about it, you know.
Really? Compassion? You don't think we're being bludgeoned over the head with the compassion thing?
I don't think I get really like, is compassion a theme? And of course, but like, I have never gotten that is like the point of Malazan. I don't agree with that.
Really?
No.
You should listen to the internet because that's all they'll tell you.
I agree with you, Alan, on that the internet tells us it's all about compassion. But
if you read the entire series, like Alan and I are the only ones who've read the entire thing so far.
True.
Compassion is a pretty big deal.
Sure.
Like in the series as a whole. But in this particular book, it's not that big a deal.
I think that compassion is like the core of humanity. Without compassion, I'm sorry?
Sorry, Max Scarfield made a comment that I was going to comment on when you were done.
Oh, okay. This one? Okay. Well, I was just saying that compassion is something that is generally what holds us together as a society, because we can empathize with someone else, because we can appreciate their pain and we want to help them through that pain. So I think it's essential that compassion be a part of this story, but I've never felt hit over the head with that. I know a lot of people say that, but I haven't felt it anyway.
No.
All right. You want to tell us this?
There is a 0% chance that Erikson has not read or at least is familiar with Xenophon's Anabasis, because Xenophon led 10,000 mercenaries into Persia, Greek mercenaries into Persia, to fight in a succession war between two Persian kings. His side, Xenophon's side, lost. He didn't lose any men, but his side lost, and he had to do a fighting withdrawal, 1,200 miles or more out of Persia, being chased the whole way. Absolutely, this has some relation to the Anabasis. Absolutely incredible. And that it helped me understand the Anabasis when I started teaching it, because I was like, I have seen this before. Like, this is the fighting withdrawal. Like, the Anabasis became the manual for the fighting withdrawal in the Greek and Roman world. So, sure. Like, now, do I wish that Xenophon had sappers that blew up the river when he was crossing it? Absolutely. He did not.
Everything would have been different if he'd had Marant's munitions.
Fun story from this, though. Xenophon and his Greeks, they came to like a fortress with some Persian tribes or whatever, and they were throwing boulders out at the Greeks. And so the Greeks made a game of it where they would see who can get the closest and then dodge out of the way at the last moment of the boulders they were throwing in. They made it a game until like the people inside ran out of boulders, like trying to hit them, and they just invaded the fortress and killed them. It's amazing. They're just like, whoa, like dodging. So fun. I wish the Wiccans had done that.
Wiccans did a bunch of other cool stuff.
Yeah, they had Maranth.
Let's talk about some of the characters. Let's move on to Malazan. Because I
Uh-oh.
know that.
Here we go.
Oh, is it
Right
too
in.
much? Did I jump in?
No,
Should I have
no.
started with
Go for it.
Meppo or Icarium? No, I wanted to talk
All right,
about
well.
Malazan because there was a comment earlier. I'm not sure exactly where it
Alan left because we're talking about Fellowson.
but there was a comment earlier where they were saying something to the effect that if we hated Fellowson, we were lacking in pity. And I
Empathy.
think you
Empathy.
can, or empathy.
Mhm.
I think you can dislike a character's actions, but not necessarily lack empathy for the character. Because I won't deny, I couldn't stand Fellowson.
Mhm.
I really couldn't.
Fellouson's horrible.
She is
Yeah.
horrible. She is a horrible human being, but I was so conflicted because I kept reminding myself she's 14. She's a baby. She's so young, who is going through something extremely traumatic. So I wanted to feel compassion for her, but she made it impossible for me to feel anything but like, oh my God, just go away. I don't want to read about you because you are just utter poison. Now, I did watch your video on Fellowson this evening, Tori, which was fantastic, and I recommend everyone go and watch it.
Thank you.
And it really gave me a different perspective about this character who actually has undergone trauma. And whilst I appreciate that she has, it is a little bit harder for me when I'm reading a book to feel that much empathy for a fictional character.
Mhm.
I also struggle with that, though
Yeah.
I do appreciate she did go through trauma. And of course, you can't expect her to just heal immediately, but her actions made her really hard to like. So, yeah,
Mhm.
I did not enjoy reading about her at all. And it was
The,
only.
first time I read, this,
Mm,
I was, sometimes in these large, like Game of Thrones or any of these large books with lots and lots of characters where it's jumping around chapter to chapter to different storylines. Every time it went to Phyllis's storyline, I was like, oh,
yeah, yeah.
God, I don't want to hear about this awful kid anymore.
Mm, mm.
And that was it. I didn't think much about her background, her experience, her trauma, anything like that. And then I got to know Tori. And Tori and I talked quite a lot about Fellowson, and I watched Tori's awesome video, and I thought about it a lot more, and I read it the second time, and then I was like, yes, I hate Fellowson. She's a horrible, horrible human being, and she is doing her best to make everyone around her unhappy, and she's doing her best to make sure she herself doesn't survive this horrible experience. She's basically trying to commit suicide by mouthing off. But I get why.
Mhm.
Yeah, I understand where she's coming from. I understand that someone who's been a completely sheltered individual,
Yes.
like a noble kid who's never dealt with anything difficult, who is suddenly chained to a whole bunch of horrible people, watches a guy behead a woman in front of her with a chain. I mean, how brutal is that? Also, chain imagery all over the place.
He
Mhm.
does like chains, Mr. Erikson.
He does. They're a big thing in the whole series. It like she goes through all of this stuff even before she gets to the Otateral mine, and then in the Otateral mine, she's selling herself to survive.
Yes.
And being used in horrible ways, and becomes a drug addict. And then when they're fleeing, she's in withdrawal, right? She's a drug addict who can't get her drug. And she's been through just like the unimaginably horrible, most unimaginably horrible year that you can possibly think of. And I understand her. She's still horrible. I still hate spending time with her.
Yeah.
But I get why she's like that.
I think
I
Sorry.
actually don't agree with this comment that all her choices made perfect sense. I
No,
think
not at all.
that
None of them did. Most
some of them
didn't.
didn't. I think that there were choices she made very early on. I remember reading right at the beginning that when she went on the boat to go to the Otateral mines, she decided she was going to sleep with I can't remember who it was, to make her life easier. And I thought, well, okay, I understand that she's going through a difficult time, but that seemed like a strange decision to make that early on. Her later decisions, yes, they were affected by drugs and other things, and she is 14. What the hell does she know at 14? But even so, she was just, she was just too poisonous for me. And I
my
struggled with
her before Tori mounts her, great defense. My thing is, I don't know if it's like people think that like if you just understand, then your mind will change. No. Like I can understand. Like I can understand Fellison's this was the biggest pushback I got about my opinions on her in my video. It's like, no, I get it. People are always like, well, you don't understand. This is important. It's like, okay, that doesn't mean it's interesting. And also, well, she has trauma. Like, okay, like I understand that. One, she's not real. So showing a lack of compassion and empathy for a fake person, that is different than showing a lack of empathy and compassion for a real person who is going through that. Like I'm not reading to deal with everybody's, like everyone's got so much trauma in Malazan. Like I got to pick and choose what I can deal with. Fellison's unpleasant. She's unpleasant. And then I got I had the furor around it. Like, oh, well, she's unpleasant because she's a girl. That's why. If it was a guy, you wouldn't be saying this. This is false.
No.
She was unpleasant because she was awful to everyone around her and herself.
Yeah.
That's why she was unpleasant.
Around this when I made this video. Like anybody who knows my channel or me, I don't like unpleasant characters, period. Unpleasant characters, I don't like reading them. I don't like unpleasant people. I just don't. I don't like reading about them. And Fellison is if you do not want to help yourself, like if you don't want to help yourself, like you have no interest in helping yourself, I do not know what you want me to do. Like, what do you want me to do, Fellison? Like you have no interest in making your situation better. None. And so Bawden, who is garbage, Heberick, garbage, like a Culp, I like not garbage, but
Heberick is not garbage.
I liked Heberick to begin with.
Heberick is awesome. I love
y'all can like Heberick. Oh, I'm sorry. But it's just,
I would have thought you would love Heberick, Alan.
Why?
Because he's a historian who refuses to write propaganda. He insists on writing the actual truth of what happened. He speaks truth to power. I thought he would be exactly your kind of character.
You forgot. You only think of my revolutionary side. You're missing the other half, which is tyrant. Write what I tell you, Heberick. So you like Lacine, is what you're saying?
No,
you're a Lacine fan.
Okay, at least Lacine's chapters aren't filled with abstract jade crap that I don't understand and have to read multiple times.
Okay. Now we've come to the heart of the matter.
I have to admit that too. I am still confused about these bloody jade hands and these jade statues.
Erikson,
it takes a while. It takes a while.
Just like how many like maladies can I give a character and have him still survive? Like no hands, blind, cut off his legs, headless, like just walking around as a limbless torso is Heberick, and he still manages to survive. It's just like, what is Heberick doing? He's fine in Deadhouse Gates, but like Heberick in book 4 is I'm just over Heberick. Anyway, I'm getting distracted. I don't like Fellison or her companions. It is just it's misery personified, and I don't enjoy my time spent with there. Like at least I'm just bored with Akarium and Mappo, and even then I'm only bored because of comparatively what else is going on. So I am not a Fellison fan. I find her unpleasant. I'm just like, please, just for a second, like, please stop. Please stop. Yeah. And we don't ever get any. Yeah. They don't talk to her. They freaking anyway. She just makes me mad. I do not think she's a bad character. I think she's very interesting as a character. But when I say hate, it is shorthand because it is easier to say I hate Fellison than to say I think Fellison is a very nuanced character who is experiencing a lot of trauma. And like, I'll just say hate because that's one word. And it's shorthand. And people with Asperger's use shorthand all the time. My wife, that is one of the biggest communication issues my wife and I had to learn, is understanding that I say things that are shorthand for longer things. And so that's what this is. Like, I hate Fellison. But, you know.
Yeah, I say the same. I hate this character, but it's more her actions that I hate rather than her as a character. I can understand what she's going through, but it's very hard to admire someone who is constantly doing horrible things.
Mm-hmm.
I have a quick functional question. We had a troll going
I
into
blocked.
the
That was on my channel. I blocked.
I tried to block here too.
And since that happened in Restream, I don't see the chat at all.
Oh,
I can.
Yeah.
Okay, I might leave and rejoin just to.
I would like to address it, guys. I didn't say anything about Daniel Green on my channel. Daniel Green and I are not friends. I have never spoken to him in my life. So
you don't need to give them your time, Alan.
No, you don't need to
give them your time.
I already blocked them actually.
Yeah, I blocked
them as well. When I didn't know if I could block them here, but I tried to block them because I thought
I'm going to go ahead and let you tell you. I'll just say, like, I have no quibbles with my morals. Like, I'm a morally sound individual. You guys want to hang y'all's laurel wreath on a different martyr than someone with garbage morality. How about that one?
Yep. Don't worry about it, Alan.
Yeah,
not worth your time.
No.
Moron. Like, are these people's like, are there anime waifu body pillows, like not spending enough time with them, so they have to get on the internet and bother people? Like, let's get out of your mom's basement and go find a job. How about that?
Let's stick to the book.
Yeah,
especially now that they're gone. Especially now that they're gone.
I understand because they went after Alan, so I can understand your reaction. But yeah,
that was
totally.
Yeah, let's.
Blocked. Yep,
they're gone.
Tori, it's your turn. Because I know you have a different take on this character.
I do. So I read the first 4 books of Malazan having zero context of the wider opinion of any of the characters of anything. And so when I got onto and Fellison was actually not the reason I love Deadhouse Gates, but she was the character that really immediately sold me on the book for a lot of reasons. One of the things that I've been very outspoken about on my channel is the kind of the way that a lot of sexual violence is glossed over in the fantasy community. It is rampant everywhere in so many of our fantasy books. And sometimes it's handled really well, and sometimes it's not. And I think one of the things I appreciate about Fellison's character and what Erikson did with her so much is that he wasn't willing to throw it in as this happened to Fellison and then she's fine somehow as a 14-year-old girl who is has had her entire self ripped out of her body essentially. And I completely understand why people dislike being around her in the book, why they wouldn't want to read her perspective. I completely understand that. She's not a likable character that way. What I find so interesting about the level of vitriol that people have against Fellison's character is, in my opinion, in this book and the rest of the books that I've read in the series, there are characters who are just as awful and unlikable as Fellison that people do not make this big of a deal. And the thing with Fellison is she is a person acting out of hatred, anger, and pain who has very little power. We see in in Deadhouse Gates, in other aspects of the series, we see characters with an insane amount of power who do horrible things with that power because they can't. Fellison, for the most part, is just verbally awful. Like, really, when you think about what she does with the tiny amount of power she has, it's not just on a comparison scale, it really confuses me why Fellison specifically gets so much of the vitriol of the characters in this book. despite the fact that I completely, again, like I said, understand why people don't like reading. It's not pleasant. Like, I get that.
Yeah.
That's
Um,
why.
Yeah.
Because she's unpleasant. Like
Yeah,
the,
she is.
the ruler
Absolutely.
But
who's mass murdering is like suave. Like I'll read about him.
No spoilers, but when you get to Midnight Tides and you get to Udnas is kind of an older male Felison.
Udnas
Like as far as how he behaves, he's mean to everyone. He's rude to everyone.
He sucks too.
He totally sucks. But you never see rants about him on Reddit.
Mhm.
I mean, just supporting Tori's point.
Hang on. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that about Udinese, but
I don't think he's as bad as Felison, but
yeah,
I
don't either.
And if I had done a Midnight Tides review, I'd have talked about how Udinese sucks. I don't like him
Sure.
either. He's a whiny
Sure.
baby.
Yeah. No, I can't stand him pretty much as I can't stand Felison. I think Felison has much better reasons to be who she is than he does. But
there's no doubt about that. She does have reasons for her behavior, but we don't have to like her behavior.
I don't think most people disagree on Felison, honestly, because I think everybody hates Felison's behavior except Ida, and Ida's crazy. And
Ida likes Udnas too.
Ida always says shit like this, and I can't decide whether she's just doing it to personally troll me, because she does it every single Sunday.
Zin,
She'll say something, I'm like,
That's
what?
Such a good point, Zin.
But yeah, like Felison is just extremely annoying to be around and to observe, and you feel sorry for everyone around her.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's not very hard to understand why she's like that.
I think she's such a fantastic example of a trauma victim, especially a young trauma victim that has childhood abuse in their past, who is brought into so in a perfect world, Felison goes through, like, if she has to go through all of this stuff, we get out of the prison that she's in, and suddenly she has the opportunity to heal and become something better and be around people who can support that. That's what we want for trauma victims, right? We want them to have a space of support and the beginning of healing. However, Felison goes from one survival situation to another. The tactics don't change, because she in her mind, what has really changed, because she's still in a position of, like, I need to protect myself from all of the horrific things and people that I'm around. And so it comes out as more of the same. And I wish that Felison had come to a point where she could begin actually healing from what she's been through, because there's a lot of aspects of her character that could be turned around for good. But in Deadhouse Gates, we don't get that.
The other thing that didn't occur to me until my second read, she's a junkie who goes cold turkey when they escape. Like, she is deep in withdrawal the whole time that they're in the desert.
And one of the things that I always
nobody's pleasant when that's going on.
One of the things I also try to point out, which is a detail in the beginning of the book that I think is important because it matters for the larger arc, is Felison at first was trying to get better food for herself and stuff on the slave ship. And it's mentioned that it also mentions, I think, in that first part, better food for her and for other. Immediately, she is protecting. Felison is a protector character, which I think a lot of people miss. She is doing a lot. She's sacrificing herself in order to somehow improve life for people that for some reason she's trying to keep alive or cares about.
In the mine as well. I mean, at least in her own head, a lot of what she's doing is to protect Habarik. You know, that she's trying to improve Habarik's situation. She's trying to make sure he doesn't have to work too hard, that kind of thing, that she's sacrificing herself to improve someone else's situation.
But it's also Habarik and Belden say, we don't need you to sacrifice yourself. This
it gives her a
choice
purpose
you're making.
Yeah, that's what kept her alive, though.
Yeah.
Yes, but it's also, you have to wonder, how much is she deluding herself that she's actually assisting people?
Yeah.
And how
She's
much
14.
is it something that she wants to do? Yeah.
I mean, I think she's totally being manipulated. Like in the mine, the only person who's on top is Benneth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like she does not have any leverage. She is not winning anything against
Yeah.
Benneth. Benneth is getting exactly what he wants. He's using people exactly the way he wants to, and he's getting what he needs out of it. And she's telling herself that she's being a bit of a hero and she's doing something good for someone else. She's not really,
No.
but that's at least her motivation.
Right.
You know, does she have agency? That's a good question.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think she thinks she has agency. I don't
think
know how
that's
much she
the
actually
difference
has.
between the mine and the desert, to be honest, and you see the breakdown of her character when she actually has a small amount of agency in the desert, where all of a sudden she can make different choices for herself, and it's too much.
Especially on my second read, I got a very strong feeling when they get into the desert. She was literally trying to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
She had just given
To some
up.
degree, yeah.
Yes.
And she was like, I am going to do nothing to try and improve our situation.
Yes.
In fact, I'm going to undermine every opportunity to improve our situation because I don't want to live anymore.
Yeah.
I'm over it.
That is
I
where
should agree with that.
most of my dislike for Fellison comes post Mines.
Yeah.
Like I even, I get it earlier on or whatever, but once like she's free of all that, I'm just like, what are you doing? Like let's get out of there.
She's
and
not a horrible person in the mines.
Yeah, it's only when they're out and like they're like Baldwin and like at that point are literally trying to help her, and she's just like nah. It's like Fellison, like I don't know, just make a litter and just like carry her the rest of the way. And
I was seriously waiting at some point. I was thinking that at some point Bowden is just going to clock her. And they're going to drag her around unconscious for like 200 pages.
I think I would have preferred that myself because I was so tired of her by then. Yeah. Well, let's move on because I think this is a character you can spend hours talking about. And I can understand people feeling divisive about her, but I don't think it's got anything to do with her sex. I think it's all about the actual character herself as to why people dislike her. But I just don't think it means that people lack compassion if they dislike this character. I don't think
hilariously
like her.
I have seen people, Malazan defenders, like the hardcore Malazan defenders, act without compassion and so cruelly in YouTube comments about Malazan stuff. If Fellison in particular. And it's like, do you guys not understand your irony like that is going on right now? Like you are literally obsessed with telling everybody about how Malazan's about compassion, and you are absolutely excoriating people in YouTube comments. That is ridiculous. That's ridiculous.
I mean, also one of the things that occurs to me, like Alan was saying, she's a fictional person, so empathy doesn't matter.
Real.
Yeah, that's how I feel about fiction.
I know a person like her in real life, and like Habarik, I tried at a certain point to help this person quite a bit. And like Fellison, they were just toxic, just poisonous to be around, no matter how nice you were trying to be, no matter what favors you were trying to do them, no matter how you were trying to lift them up. And the only thing I could do at some point was say, actually, at this point, I feel like I need to save myself. I'm stepping away. Because you're not accepting help. The help I'm trying to give isn't actually helping. And it's damaging me. And this is becoming stupid from my perspective.
But you wouldn't say you hate that person.
No,
but I hate being around them.
Yeah, for sure. But that's why, like saying I hate Fellison, I would never say I hate someone going through that in real life either. I can say Fellison, she's real.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I have a lot of sympathy and compassion for that person.
Fictional characters.
I don't want to be anywhere near them anymore.
I think the last thing I'll say about her character specifically is like, and I think I have perhaps a different view of her personally because I've been aspects of Fellison in my life. I've been through a lot of the aspects of her trauma journey and realizing like, and I talk about this in my video a lot too, the way that society expects trauma victims to pick up their trauma and be wonderful, productive, happy, loving members of society
Healed immediately.
without healing necessarily. Because like I've had the opportunity and blessing of being through a lot of healing since then, which makes me not a horrible person to be around, I hope. So like, but
Most of
Fellison,
the time. Most of the time.
thanks, Matt. I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All the time, I would say.
but Fellison never had that opportunity, and I wish for her that she had.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. The truth is that she was also so young. And I don't care what anyone says, but at 14, you just are not equipped to deal with situations like that. So
Well,
I
and her
think-
whole experience in the book starts with her oldest sister sending her off to be a slave.
yeah, let's
I
not
mean,
forget such a betrayal for her.
oh my God.
This is her
Yeah.
sister who sent her off, not some stranger. So
I can't wait for the House of Chains discussion. That's all I can say.
The only person,
Yeah,
the only
me
person,
either. Yeah.
the only person in all 10 books who has a harder time than Fellison is Talk.
Oh,
Talk the Younger.
Talk the younger.
bless him.
Yeah.
Talk the Younger. Oh my gosh, what a
Let's not get into Talk the
No,
Younger.
let's
but
not
he-
get into Talk.
Talk the Younger's garbage.
No,
oh,
no,
oh,
right. We're going to
oh.
get into it next time. All
Yeah,
right.
when we
Matt
have the
And
memory of ice.
Icaria.
Yes.
Matt Bonica. Oh man.
Okay. One of my
Love those
favorite
guys.
things of this series is these friendships, because I truly value friends above so many other things in my life, including family, of course, but friendships to me are sacrosanct. And when I see really well developed friendships in books, I absolutely love it. And it always seems that, and I don't want to get into spoilers, but there are a lot of unlikely pairings in this series. And that's something else that I just adore. But I found their relationship so heartbreaking, so sad, because he had one lying to another, and yet he adores Icarium. Mappo loves this character, loves Icarium, and yet is trying to protect the world by lying to him, which weighs on him so heavily. So this is a character that I can't help but adore, as well as Icarium, who, let's be honest, in Deadhouse Gates, he was just oblivious to everything. So I didn't feel as connected to him as to Mappo. But I love these characters. So
I wasn't doing this to Icarium and Mappo. This was to Talk
Okay.
the Younger.
Oh, okay.
I like Icarium and Mappo.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. I thought you didn't. I watched
No.
your
I
video,
think in this book they are. I think in this book they are a snooze fest. But
Yeah.
I've read the whole
Yeah.
series, and I like Icarium and Mappo.
Yeah.
I do not think that Icarium's developments, like that storyline's developments, are as good as other people do. Like, it's not one of my favorite storylines, but I do like Icarium as a character, and I do like Mappo as a character. And they're in Return of the Crimson Guard, there's like an almost carbon copy of those two, and I'm like, this is like great value brand Icarium and Mappo, and it is not anywhere.
Oh, I have to read that next. Yeah.
You don't. Please just read the summary. Please just read the summary. I'm trying to help you. But I like them. I think in the context of the rest of the book, it just slows down a bunch. And I mean, you're learning a lot of the history and about the, like, I wish we would ever get a book about the First Empire. Like, that's what I want. Because it's all First Empire stuff, which is awesome. But when you're reading it and you've got Callum's storyline and Fiddler and then Coltane, and then it's like, okay, well, all right, guys, sit back. David Attenborough's coming out, and we're gonna take a look. We're gonna take a look at these ruins real quick, and then we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming. And I just want it to. When I get to Fellison's chapters, I don't want to read any of them because I don't like any of them, and I don't enjoy their presences. And then we get to Icarium and Mappo, and I'm just like, man. Okay. I mean, that's okay. Like, I read it, but I'm just like, all right, let's get back, guys. So I do not dislike them. I just do not find them super interesting in Deadhouse Gates specifically.
It is slow, but I also wonder if that was deliberate on Erikson's part for to show us this friendship and this land, the desert, Raraku, whilst we have, on the other hand, Coltane and the chain of dogs, which seems to be constantly in motion. And then we have this very slow storyline. I have to wonder if it was a deliberate counterpoint to the chain of dogs. I don't know. But I don't disagree. It did get slow sometimes, and I thought it needs to move on. But it's not like this book lacked storylines, because they are only one part of it. But yeah, talk about, Tori, what are your thoughts on Mappo and Icarium?
I am also a sucker for good friendships, and especially I think one of the themes I think that is often played on in the different relationships in the series is the idea of protecting each other. And whether for the right reasons, the wrong reasons, like, sometimes it's the right choice, sometimes it's not the right choice. And I think I have I'm not sure if this is a hot take or not, because I honestly pay about this much attention to the wider Malazan opinions, but I actually think that on a scale of just, and I said this in our chat yesterday, on a scale of general badassery, like Icarium is above Animander Rake for me by far. Like, I like Rake, he's cool, but Icarium is so much cooler. Like, there's that part, I actually marked it in the book. There's a part where Icarium goes up against the I can't remember if it's a diverse or a soul taken, one of the two. And like Icarium's just been kind of like, as Helen said, snooze festing through the desert this whole time. And all of a sudden this diverse comes up and is going to attack them. And Icarium's just basically like, don't make me mad. Gone. And I'm just like, that's so awesome. Like, and I can't wait to see the explosion of his character at some point in the series.
Something to look forward to.
Oh, I can't wait, because I think, I think in this book, what I loved about them was seeing the potential for where they're going, where I think they're going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zen, the rake is the Sephiroth phenomenon, is the rake thing. Everyone likes him because he's
he looks cool.
He has a big old sword. Yep, it's
he
Sephiroth.
Cool.
I love the snooze fest aspect of Mappo and Icarium though, because I mean I didn't at any point really find them boring, but like when they first appear, and usually most of the scenes where it comes back to them, at least in this book, they're very calm. It's two friends hanging out and chatting. And then every now and then, like a diverse shows up and Icarium's like, go away, and it obeys him.
Yeah.
But overall, I love that contrast that Erikson is giving us these calm moments with them. And Icarium is one of the most dangerous people in the entire world.
Well, that's what we've been told, right? That he's a half jagged.
He's terrifying.
Destroying the world. That's what we're told.
He's really terrifying.
Or anyone else. Yeah.
No, Icarium is a nuke. And and every time we see them, it's kind of this chill, two buddies hanging out, and
which we also
kind of wrong.
We also need that kind of wrong. Like from a storytelling aspect, all of the horror going on everywhere else. That's like our moment to take a breath, usually.
Yeah, well, that's how I felt sometimes in the other storylines. It gave me a moment to kind of sit back and take in what was happening with the chain of dogs and what was happening with other characters like Fiddler, or somebody mentioned Culp. And I don't know about you guys, but I was really upset when Culp was killed. I was like, he just came out of nowhere.
So mad. I was like, yes, finally someone in this group who I can like root for, and then freaking the rats, and it was disgusting. I was so mad.
Culp was like maybe the only simply kind of good character in the entire book. Like everybody else is a bit complicated, mostly good, but not totally, or whatever. And Culp was just trying to do what he was told to do and save some people, and all of a sudden he gets grillined. Yeah. And Grillin is also like the most horrible diverse.
Yeah.
Or
I'll
Soul
say
Taker.
about this book, Erikson does stuff that many authors do not, in where this is the first series I read where stuff that doesn't make any sense or has no context, but that's because we're going to get a whole lot of it later in later books. The whole thing with the nascent, like the nascent, the water place with the flying Dracolich, and where the ship is, like, what?
Oh, right, that one. Yes,
That's
I
what I'm saying. It's
wondered
just like,
what
it's
that
just like,
is.
what? Yeah, no, I know it has like nothing to do. This is when I read it the first time. Like,
Yeah.
what are we doing? Like, what are we doing, Erikson?
Yeah.
They sail into the fire and like
But
there's
then-
a ship with a pile of heads and
But
what?
it has to do so much with stuff that's later.
Yes.
And I guess he must have, like, I think he knew he had a 10-book series, so he was allowed to do that. Like, I don't think you can do that if you don't even know, if you're going to be able to write the next book or whatever, because like, independently, it's like, why is this here? Like, what does this have to do with right now? But it has a ton to do with later. And so it was just a new experience for me when I read that. So
I really liked the Gessler. I loved Gessler.
I love Stormy and Gessler.
Yes,
Love the
Gessler and Stormy.
And everybody forgets Truth. Poor Truth.
And Truth.
Like,
I didn't forget it.
Stormy,
Quiet
Gessler, and
one, the
Truth.
young one.
sucks.
But
I
it
can
was
have your
just, I thought they had some of the most interesting things happen to them, where they got stuck in the Warren and then they find this ship with cut off heads that are still alive. Yeah, that was really cool. And
The Solander. Don't forget the Solander.
the Solander, yeah. And honestly, it made me so much more curious about the Warrens and how they actually work and what are they. But I love their storyline, and I loved that. Who was it? Oh, was it Coltane who punched Gessler? He did. I'm pretty sure he did, actually.
Yeah.
We're getting a few of these.
Yeah, and they're on Tori's channel. I was just going to recommend maybe, Tori, that you close down the stream on your channel.
Because that's
I'm
not
not
gonna
sure who it
For
is.
some reason, they're all
You
coming
tell.
through yours, not mine or
I'm getting
Kathy's.
this also. You Deadhouse. Heck you. He's just, I think he's a troll.
I think it would be totally fine to block him as well.
Yeah, I think I will as well. Yeah, because I was noticing it. I couldn't make sense what he was trying to say. Yeah.
No, he's
anyway.
just talking crazy stuff.
Yes, definitely Truth.
Stormy
and
and Gessler and Truth.
Such brilliant characters.
They're so amazing.
And
have
we
you
initially,
that actually,
didn't we, with Kalam? Wasn't it in that inn? Isn't that where we first met them? Yeah.
And it makes me wonder or want to ask, especially you two ladies, since you're the newer ones and still getting through the series, what have you understood about ascending?
Do you want to go first, Tori? Because I've read a few more than you, so perhaps I've picked up something. Not that I think I have, but maybe.
Honestly, this is one of the things where I always encourage people who are reading Malazan with this, because I am the type of person where I have a really hard time putting things together. I'm the type of person you want reading a murder mystery because I don't guess. I just read the story. Because I have a really hard time remembering enough details to put together. So when it comes to Malazan, I've kind of settled in as I love these characters, and at some point he'll tell me something.
Yeah.
I think what I'm noticing at this point is that pretty much everyone is ascending. Like, there's so many characters.
It's pretty common somehow, yeah.
It's very common, yeah, which almost makes me more curious to see, like, okay, so what does that look like on the opposite side of whatever we're trying to get to? And is anyone actually dead ever? Like, quote unquote. Because I don't know. And I'm curious to see what Erikson does. I trust him as an author, but that's resurrection tropes, and I know this isn't the exact same thing. I hate I hate resurrection tropes. If you go through the emotional impact of killing a character, for me,
Yeah, they should stay dead.
stay dead.
That's one of my complaints about Malazan, and people,
Mm.
the hardcore people come out and say I'm like, but he does though. Not all,
Yeah.
not all,
Not
Like
all.
us.
No.
but I mean, there are a lot of not permadeaths, which is annoying.
It
Mm.
bothers
But
me less in Malazan than it bothers me everywhere else, but it is something that I'm like, okay, but like,
He's kind of made it something different with having Hood, with having
right.
ascending. It's
Yep.
clear that death isn't always the end.
I mean, I would rather it be the end though. Like I would rather.
I did a
Sometimes,
video. I did a video all about just death and rebirth in Malazan because I kept going back and forth on this. I also hate like people that just continually die and come back and whatever.
Mm.
And the death doesn't seem to have any consequence.
Yeah.
And the conclusion I came to was, first of all, I like it in Malazan because it's part of the world. Like it's a fundamental part of the world that death is not the end.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There are so many people throughout history. Like we've got all of the Talana Mas wandering around all over in the world. They've been around for hundreds of thousands of years and they haven't died.
Yeah.
Mhm.
People ascend, people go through Hood's Gate and come back.
Yeah.
Like it's part of the world. It's not just like one character who has plot armor and it's inconvenient that they died and now they're back. And everybody, pretty much everybody, not 100% everybody, but pretty much everybody that dies comes back changed. Like there are consequences for them.
Yeah.
Even though they're alive again, they do have consequences.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if I can say that. In Deadhouse Gates, it became clear, for example, that Callanved and Rope,
Dancer.
Answer.
are actually Rope or Cotillion and Shadow Throne.
But they never died.
Yes, but we're told that they've ascended. We're told that they're different, but we didn't really get to see them before. So I don't know how different they really are. So I guess that's the thing. I don't mind.
But I put them in a different category because they didn't die. Like they weren't resurrected. They ascended.
Yeah,
they became gods.
That's true.
And that's a bit of a different thing. Although some people die in order to ascend. So
yes. Yeah. And I think
there are so many different ways it can happen.
Well, I'm still confused about ascending, but I'm assuming that the characters have to go through something quite extraordinary to be able to get to that point of ascension.
It doesn't ever become super clear.
Yeah.
There is no 100% explanation.
I like answers. I want answers though.
What I've gotten out of it, and this is having finished the series, this is not more than I had when I was at Deadhouse Gates. There are lots of different ways it can happen.
Mm.
If you really become a god, you need to have a bunch of people that believe in you.
Yes, I
right?
do.
With what's his name, the old god in Gardens of the Moon, where they spill his blood in the temple, and he comes back. Or is that not Gardens of the Moon? Am I confusing things again?
I don't think that's Gardens of
Might be Memories of Ice. Anyway, you need people.
Memories of Ice.
Yeah, you need people who strongly believe in you. But then Stormy and Gessler and Truth come out of that warren kind of ascended.
Yeah, that's what I don't understand. Have they ascended or haven't they? And what does it mean that they are kind of ascended? Yeah, there's always questions at the end of these books for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Man.
All right. Well, who should we talk about next? Any suggestions?
Kalam.
All right. Let's talk about Kalam. Kalam. He is not one of my favorites. Sorry, Tori, but
Kathy, you and I are friends, Kathy. Like you and I.
I've been replaced.
You have good opinions. You have all
Kroll
the
is the god I was looking for.
There you go.
I love Fiddler. Fiddler is my favorite. Absolute favorite.
Absolutely, Kathy. We are kin, you and I.
Kalam is interesting, but he hasn't really I haven't become attached to him. And that doesn't mean I can't admire his skill, like in Malaz City, when he just goes through all the claw. Now, I thought that was amazing, and I loved that. But yeah, he's just not one of my favorites. But I think he's one of yours, Tori. I'm not
He
sure
is-
about you, Matt.
He is my favorite Malazan character at this point.
Yeah, I'd probably pick Quickpen or Fiddler myself, but Kalam's up there. Kalam is high on the list. I like Kalam a lot. I'm just a huge fan of anyone who's like a massive unstoppable badass and is doing it for the good. And he's yeah.
He was
Otherwise,
very
he would have.
conflicted in Deadhouse Gates. He gave the holy book to Shag.
Yeah, but only because he was trying to undermine Lacine.
Was he? Is that?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, because
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to argue this point because undermining Lacine by helping a rebellion, how is that going to help the common soldiers? How
It's
is
not going to
that
help the
not a
common soldiers.
betrayal of
It's going
them?
to undermine. It is. But he's got a
And-
larger goal.
Yeah, but
He's
this larger
trying to get to
goal-
Lacine.
But this larger goal means that all these other soldiers are going to be sacrificed. So I disagree with this.
If he wasn't fundamentally a good guy,
Mm,
he would have persisted in trying to assassinate Lacine and not accepted her explanation.
yes.
See, this is the point where it parallels really strongly with that movie I was talking about, Hero. He's trying to kill Lacine because she betrayed the bridge burners.
Yeah.
Right? Like somebody buried the bridge burners in Gods of the Moon.
Tasha.
And well, yeah, but like Tayshrin takes his orders from somewhere,
Tayshrin
right?
sucks, Kathy. He just
Tayshrin
Yeah.
Tayshrin kind of sucks, yeah. But he takes his orders from somewhere, doesn't he? So Kalam's like, okay, where it really came from is Lacine. I'm going to take Lacine out, which is essentially just revenge. And then when he gets an explanation that she is actually the right person to be running the Empire, and compared to Kellenved, she certainly is, he accepts it and leaves her alone.
Yeah, see, I had trouble with that scene too. Whilst I understood that what Erikson was going for is that Lacine was trying to do what is best for Malazan, I don't know if I buy it. I think that she has shown herself in the past, even in Gardens of the Moon at the very beginning, as wanting power. That's what I thought anyway. So I don't know if she is the best person to run the Empire.
No, Lacine sucks too. I bet Ida likes Lacine too. Ida likes Tayshrin also. What are you doing to me, Ida? What are
You know who Ida's favorite character is in the entire books?
Felt.
Silchus Ruin.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Look, Silchus Ruin is at least cool. Like Tayshrin and those other two people aren't even cool.
Are awful.
Like Silchus Ruin
So,
at least is cool. He sucks
but
too.
her explanation, like through the corpse, like he couldn't have gotten to her anyway, but her explanation is kind of convincing. Like at the end of it, I was like, okay, you've made these decisions, which are hard decisions that impacted a lot of people very negatively, of course, but were for the greater good of the Empire, arguably.
Okay. Let me go ahead and ask a question. Did Seven Cities rebel under Kellenved? Oh, it didn't? Oh, okay. No. You suck, Lacine. You suck.
Yes.
You suck.
Yeah.
I mean, all we really know about Kellenved as an emperor is that most of his energy was spent trying to ascend, not running the Empire.
Yeah, he was insane, wasn't? No, but he also did. He was the leader who actually took over 7 cities. It was under his rule.
Yeah, but only because he was sitting on the throne and on the correct throne and had control of all the Talana Mas. As soon as he lost the Talana Mas,
he did, yes. But that was also something he did to actually obtain control of the 7 cities. Well, I don't know who was a better leader because we haven't seen enough of Kellenved in action as
or Lacine, really.
We are literally witnessing the Empire fall apart under Lacine. Like that's what this is. Like the whole Empire is falling apart under Lacine's leadership. Now you can blame it on she inherited faulty systems under Kellenbed, I will not take that tack. And Lysine is not, sorry, Dancer and Kellenbed had it, and Lysine is botching it and trying to bury the bridge burners is
that was unforgivable.
Unforgivable. I don't care how much the books try to
100%.
Make me sympathize. Don't care. Don't bear the bridge burners. We're done. We're done.
I'm not sympathizing with Lysine. I'm just saying that if Kalam was purely selfish, he would still be trying to kill Lysine at the end of the book. And throughout the following books.
I wish he was.
Right, like, because you're relating to the characters. But the larger argument, he sees her point and drops it, and he's just a total badass where they send the entire claw after him and he's like, yeah, whatever,
I do like that scene in the Malazan, but up to then, like on the boat and with Minala, I found it a little dull, to be honest. It wasn't one of my favorites.
Minala is one of the characters that I hate. I don't understand. I totally do not understand Minala at all. Like, why she even exists. And the insta-love thing with Kalam.
To be the mother to all these children.
I know that she has a function kind of in the story, but like, the whole insta-love with Kalam thing, and she's going to follow him to the ends of the earth all of a sudden and drop all of her responsibilities. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
What about the Red Blades? I thought they were an interesting element that Erikson included. Here we have turncoats, really, who are fanatical Malazan fans who are actually rounding up their own people, killing their own people.
That's Lestara, right? Lestara Yill?
Lestara, yes.
I like Lestara.
I like her too, but I do not like this group as a whole because they are traitors to their own, basically. And I just think that the way they described at the beginning of the book is they're fanatics. And I'm sorry, I don't like fanatics of any kind. So, I had trouble with them as a group. And I know we're going to see them again, but still, they were an interesting aspect that Erikson included.
I think one of the things that I'll shoot out there for Kalam is like this. Deadhouse also reminded me, rereading it, why I love his character so much, and especially in the first half where he's kind of disguised, quote unquote, with this group of bandits. They're going through the desert, and this group is like, hey, there's this Malazan family up ahead, we're going to catch up to them, we're going to rob them, we're going to do all these horrible unspeakable things to them. And there wasn't even a hesitation. Like, the minute they said anything, Kalam was like, and it was just the most nonchalant, like, you're dead, because he's an assassin with morals. And that's one of the things that I really like about him a lot, is that he has boundaries of like, I'll I'm an assassin, but also the minute you start talking about doing these horrible things to innocent people, you're done, period. Like, there's no mercy there. And I love that about him. I love that about him so much.
Can we talk about the worst character, Pearl? Pearl is the worst. Pearl sucks so much.
Pearl is... I didn't like Pearl in this one, actually. I thought he was a waste of space as well. I thought, hang on, okay, Lestara's interesting because she's on this mission. So why do we have Pearl? Because he has magical abilities and is able to open the warrens.
And because he's a claw. I mean, he was Lysine keeping an eye on what was going on.
Yes.
In a way. You know?
And also, the first time reading this book, I don't know if anybody else had this problem, the name of the demon that Nander Rake unleashes is Pearl. And so then when I see Pearl in Deadhouse Gates the first time, I'm like, wait a minute.
Like, there's a demon here?
Like there isn't.
That's right, it
there
is.
isn't a reason to use the same name. Like, it's very confusing on the first go through, because I understand that people have the same name in real life. Erikson, you didn't have to do that. Like you literally could have picked a different name.
I also was like, why would you do that? I don't understand what that's for. Like that doesn't really make any sense to me. But yeah, having two characters with exactly the same name. I mean, they're easy to differentiate. One's a guy, one's a demon, but still. Like,
I
thought they were the same person for a minute, so I thought like he had the ability to turn into a demon somehow. And it took a minute to figure out that was not the case.
Also, speaking of demons, can we please talk about Apt?
Now he was an interesting character that came out of
Apt and Panek.
Yeah.
Like, and also that whole storyline was so heartbreaking in and of itself, but also, again, plug for Kalam. The whole, like, Kalam wanted to adopt, like, he wanted to save all these
10,000 kids.
And then I loved the temper tantrum that Hood threw with all of the saved children toward the end, because it was just like that whole story arc was awful, and some of the worst like horror elements of the book as a whole. And also somehow Erikson manages to make it wholesome. I don't know how he did that, but it was, I love that whole, it was good.
I actually wanted to talk about Duca as well, because
Duca is so good.
Yeah, we haven't talked about Duca.
We all love Duca.
Love.
Yes.
Yeah, Duca is the best.
I think what I liked about him is that he seems like this dry historian to start off with. And then we learned that he's actually a soldier, was a soldier. He actually takes up arms. He actually fights in this battle. That scene, not the scene, the scenes where he's chasing the army, trying to catch up with them. I thought that was so badass. And I thought, wow, here is this old man, this historian, but there's a lot of life left to him. He humanized this whole storyline, I think. He humanized Coltane for me, because we really didn't get to see a lot of Coltane speak to us. It was all actions. It had nothing to do, we just didn't hear him actually express a lot of opinions. It was more what everyone thought around him. And so it was through everyone's observations of him that we learned what kind of person he is.
I'm going to pop out and pop right back in.
Sure. I'm just going to block them on YouTube. I don't care.
Because we have multiple channels streaming it there. Some of them are on my channel. I've been blocking them as they turn up. Some of them are on Tories.
It's the great irony is the thing is I don't lie, so it's hard. Like I don't say things that I am lying about. Like these troglodytes are. I mean, do they think they're going to go back to like Daniel Green and be like, oh, my lord, I trolled Alan on a stream. May I be gifted? May I please be gifted prizes like land and titles?
Yeah, I don't get why they're attacking you anyway. And it's not like we even brought out a video on this. Like,
I know. And the thing is, they're saying that I lied to y'all. No, I didn't lie at all. They're mad. They're mad that I won't delete the single comment that I made. They're mad that I showed compassion for someone who I thought was going through something and will not go and personally apologize and bend the knee to the booktube overlord. Like, get out of here. Like,
you absolutely do not need to give them your time, Alan.
Look, if this is the kind of audience that you draw, like, you're garbage to start with. Like, your audience is garbage. Like, get it together.
And honestly,
so back to Duiker.
Yeah, back to Duiker.
Yeah, back to Duiker.
Something far more entertaining and important.
He did go from cynic to hopeful to tragic. I agree with that, actually. But he just seemed to humanize this whole experience, because we didn't get to be in many of the soldiers' heads, but we were in Duca's. It was his perspective we were thinking a lot of.
It's cool.
And he goes from being like a totally cynical, detached old man to being one of the soldiers.
And also
totally there with them.
Like we see I think Duiker also serves kind of a sub-purpose as a character to show how Coltane has has built the kind of loyalty that he has with his soldiers, because we see Duiker, like, at the beginning, he's just like, well, what are these Wiccans? And like, he's kind of, all right, we're going to do this thing. And like you said, kind of that cynical beginning, to by the end, he's willing to go out and stand with them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I love that arc
Yeah.
of his character, because I think,
Yeah.
it shows that larger than life presence that Coltane has through the eyes of our protagonist, one of our protagonists.
It
Yeah,
also makes the entire chain of dogs like 10 times more tragic,
Yeah.
because at the beginning, Duiker is like, you can't succeed. None of this, it's just not possible. We're all going to die. Everything always ends this way. And at the end, he believes in Coltane. He actually has quite a lot of faith in Coltane.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Because he saw him in
Duiker.
action. He saw him actually pull them out of the fire so many times. He saw Coltane defeat these greater armies. I mean, I had a bit of hero worship for Coltane. I can't deny it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I think people who don't, did they read the book?
Yeah.
But it also just blows my mind that everybody ends up loving Coltane so much, because, like I said, he has like 10 lines maybe in the whole
He
book.
doesn't speak
but
much.
There's hardly any scenes
But
with
we
him.
don't
in
need
them.
to.
He speaks with his actions, Matt.
Yeah, I don't think we would have liked Coltane as much if we had a Coltane POV. We wanted Coltane because Coltane is the guy who is saving us. Like, he is. We don't know how. We like Duiker and the people who aren't in the inner circle. We have to take it on faith that Coltane's going to get us out of it. And that bonds us to him. And so when Coltane fails at the end, like at the very end, fails to save at least his people, it is so tragic, because he has delivered us through everything, and he fails not because of anything he did. He did not fail. His people, the people he's supposed to be delivering these people to, the people he's serving, failed him. And that is just incredibly tragic. And I don't think it would have worked as well if Duiker had been in there, if we had known the plans in advance, if we had a Coltane POV. Like, Erikson had to write it from that outsider's perspective to get the effectiveness that it had, and it's wonderful.
And he does it perfectly over and over again. He does it with Coltane. He does it with Tavor. He does it with Anamander Rake. Like, we don't get to have POVs from these people because we're meant to be kept guessing and see their effect on the people around them.
Yeah.
And really get to know who they actually are.
I know, like, when I asked, I'm trying to remember if that had come up in the discussion I had with Erikson, because he talked about he tried at one point to write a scene from Rake's perspective and was like, no. Like, it just he was like, there's certain characters that, like, you just can't, it's too big, like there's too much there for you.
He said in an interview, I haven't lived for hundreds of thousands of years.
right
like, how can you even guess what that perspective is?
But that's what makes it much more powerful. The character makes them, by not knowing their inner thinking, you have to guess, and you judge basically based on what he does, what Coltane does. His actions throughout has proven time and again that he was always out to help the refugees get to Aaron. That was his sole goal.
Yeah, I think
Duiker,
when I read this book for the first time, again, brand new into epic fantasy, I had never experienced anything like Malazan. And I was like 21 when I read Deadhouse Gates, I think. And Duiker was the first, I think, from what I remember, the first character I had ever read that, like, we die with him in the story. And that it rearranged my brain, that experience somehow, with writing and character and just the impact that had, and how immensely tragic that. And like, I remember being in a like post book just coma after finishing Deadhouse Gates.
Same.
It
I was a
for
mess.
weeks.
I couldn't
Can
think
we
about
can
this
we
book or talk about this book because I was such a mess about it.
can we
Sorry,
can
Matt.
we can we talk about Squint for a moment?
Oh
Yes.
my God, Squint. I love Squint so much. He was the one who made me cry, like sob.
Mhm.
I was sobbing as I was reading about him because it was so heartbreaking that this character, Coltane, had attained this status of hero to all the Malazan army. There was that, I can never remember their name, the Trigale.
The
Oh,
Trigale Merchants Guild, or
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
they were being sent food and water from those
from Quickbed.
Genebacus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought, his fame has spread. And then poor Squint having to, that was
Well,
hard.
and the bait and switch with Squint. Like when they first called for Squint, like I'm an archer in real life. Archery is one of my hobbies, so I immediately sympathize with an archer character. I'm like, oh yeah, cool archery scene, let's go. And the Trigale Trade Guild, that's what it's called. And they call in Squint, and you're like, oh yeah, cool. Now they get the awesome archer in, and he's gonna assassinate Malacrel, or he's gonna assassinate
Mhm.
Corbulo Dom, or like somebody, and then they're like, no, put one in Coltane's forehead.
I actually guessed that. I didn't think he was going to shoot the others. I thought he was going to shoot.
When he first turned up, I was like, okay, let's get the bad guys with an arrow. Good idea. Get their really good archer.
No.
And then Squint, just like you could just feel how crushed he was. You want me to do what?
Yeah.
And of course it was a perfect shot. Absolutely perfect shot.
No.
I won't say anything else, but keep an eye out for Squint.
Yes.
He's not gone.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, again,
he's not happy, but he's not gone.
Speaking to Erikson's writing, to the fact that he can make us an entire fandom completely adore a character in a space of like a paragraph.
Yeah.
He has a
massive fan base.
Half of a page.
Yeah.
Like he's about half of a page. He shoots one arrow. That's it. That's all he does.
Yeah, but this
Squint was
this was the end of an epic journey about an epic character. This was about one of the most heroic actions that we've seen in this book.
Dom's comment is absolutely correct and important to understand what Squint did.
There was that as well. Yeah.
The reason they had Squint kill Coltane is Corbulo Dom was preventing the crows from getting to Coltane.
Yes. And that was why Neil and is it Nether? Were, sobbing because they could see that they wouldn't release him.
He was going to lose his soul.
Yeah, he was going to lose his soul.
Yeah.
It wasn't enough that they captured him. Outmanned him, outgunned him, and all of this. No. Let's crucify him as well. I absolutely hated the others in this story so much because they had no honor. I mean, they crucified 10,000 children, 10,000 kids. I hated the other side in this story from day one to the end. Whilst I can understand why a rebellion had come about in the 7 cities, their actions in just wiping out children, crucifying them, are unforgivable.
Yeah.
Yep.
The Malazans are not always good, but the other side's worse.
Yeah.
Definitely. Dan, exactly. Duerker's assistant. Do you mean Corporal List?
Yes. Oh, I love Corporal List.
Corporal List is the best.
I love List.
Yeah.
I swear when we were
bless his heart. Bless List's heart. He sucks at war games. Sorry, buddy.
But that's what was so good about him is we read about him right at the beginning as this person who was constantly being killed in the war games. And yet he played such a major role throughout this story, and you actually saw him becoming a better soldier.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that.
He was one of the soldiers that was running towards Aaron when they were all running towards Aaron. And then there is that scene with Coltana and all his men, and they're just killing them one by one.
But
So
the fact that List was like right at Coltane's side at the very end, just I was
Holding
so
his
like
banner.
so
Yeah.
proud of him.
Yeah.
I love List. I love List.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. List is another super sympathetic, super tragic
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I
Go on.
I was just
You what?
commenting on something I missed. At Erikson, I do not like the TTG. I think that storyline goes nowhere. They in
Oh,
Is that the guild?
yeah.
that-
Yeah. The
I
Trigger.
wonder. I don't
Thank
know
you.
what their purpose is either.
there isn't one. There isn't one except to
More comes in later books, and there are bits in
I've
later
seen
books
them.
where I will absolutely agree with Alan. There's a big chunk about them in later books where I'm like,
yeah. Why?
what are we doing?
I
What are we
felt-
doing here? I don't get it. Why?
Yeah.
You know, I thought in this book they were a cool idea. Like,
Yeah, I
it's a
agree.
world with
I think
magic.
it goes nowhere.
Like, it's a
Right.
world with magic. Of
Yeah.
course, you're going to have merchants who deliver shit with magic.
I think that's awesome. I
Like-
just don't think it. I don't think the payoff is very good. I don't think it.
It doesn't. It's not worth following them for a long period of time.
Yeah, too much page count for where we.
Yeah.
end up.
Mm.
Yeah.
It
They turn up at the right moment because someone has hired them to send some stuff. Totally fine with that. But
Yeah, but-
otherwise, like,
Yeah. I felt the same way. I thought, really, they're going to come to the rescue in the last minute and provide food to the soldiers that need it. Yeah.
they're a bit of a Deus Ex. Yeah,
Yeah.
they're a convenient,
Yes.
a very
that's what it felt
convenient
like to me as
mechanism in
well.
the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've been going for 2 hours. I don't want to keep you guys too long. So perhaps final thoughts? Or is there something that you feel I missed and we can continue talking? If anyone has any suggestions or you want to talk about something we haven't, just let me know. Otherwise, perhaps final thoughts. And that way you
Nobody
guys can get through the
complained.
day.
Nobody complained quite enough about Manala.
I mean,
I have no. I mean, she's not in my thoughts. It's like whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
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 she's, nobody's going to be good enough for Kalam for me
Callum's got a
anyways.
girlfriend now. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
I
I was
think-
joking. We don't need to start complaining about Manala.
She was
Yeah.
kind of a non-issue. She annoyed me. And then when she followed Kalam in the boat, I was like, really? Yeah, no. And even though
It's because Kalam needed a horse after he was done fighting the claws. That's why
okay,
Manala's.
that's the reason. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good reason. I
Yeah.
think he just needed somebody to be a mother to all the children.
There you go.
Her only function in the entire story for me was to make me stop and go, "Who are you and why are you
Yeah.
following Kalam?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, he's pretty badass, but like, you're just dropping everything.
Yeah,
You
that's
go,
really
who knows
bizarre.
where? Like
was
it
bizarre.
came out of nowhere. I just don't get her at all.
Yeah.
I will
Um,
say I have been given some heat for this in the past, but I will take Iskarl Pust all day, every day over Krupp. And that's all I will say about
I
that.
like
Oh,
both
man.
of them. I like
100%.
both of them.
And I thought we were friends.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
we were
thought
the
we were
same.
friends.
I hate Krupp. He is my least favorite Malazan character, period, all day, every
Hey,
day.
I also-
can't stand him.
Krupp is the best comic relief character in the entire books. And Iskarl Pust,
I don't find him funny
I'm always,
at all.
I love Krupp. I love Krupp
Krupp-
all day long.
Krupp, I
I
don't
could
find
read a
him so
book
funny.
about Krupp.
I didn't
People-
find him that funny. I found him
Krupp-
interesting because I
Krupp
think
is in
he's a
book
lot more than
There
what
is,
we
yeah,
think.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Toll the Hounds that everyone has read the whole series, and they think that Toll the Hounds is a complete justifier of Krupp, and it's
Revelation, yeah.
not. It's
No.
not. It is not as funny as people think it is. It's not.
That
It's
that
not.
particular Toll the Hound scene,
It's not as funny as people want to be.
I would be perfectly fine if it wasn't there. I could
Okay, cool.
absolutely skip that. But Krupp, the thing with the two of them for me, I find Iskerl Pust infuriating and confusing and usually meaningless.
Mhm.
And I find Krupp fascinating and interesting.
Yes, I feel the same way.
I
You
like
know,
Iskerl.
when Krupp is talking about
Wow.
stuff, he's actually talking about something.
Yeah.
And
He's just
he
very
makes some sort of
obscure.
sense.
Yeah,
What
And
I
Iskerl
liked-
Pust is
Totally agree.
totally nonsense.
I will say the reason I like Pust, not for his character specifically, I like what he brings out of the characters around him. Like Pust in a room with Crocus, Apsalar, Mappo, and Icarium, hilarious. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Krupp, I just want to skip until he's not in the.
See, I found
Anymore.
Krupp
I want
more
a novella on
interesting
just on Krupp.
than Pust.
I like Krupp better than Pust because I do
Mm.
think Krupp at least serves a purpose.
Yeah.
Iskerl Pust is just like it. I mean, it is for the reaction of the. But I'm rereading the Deathgate Cycle by Wise and Hickman right now. And Kathy, you read them, right? Yeah.
I love
Zif-
them.
Zifnab is that same character where like
Yes.
he's nonsense and it's just everyone's reaction to him. And I don't like that. I'm like, can we just move on?
Yeah.
Like, let's just go. It's I don't like Pust.
I do
Well,
love
I do like Krupp
at the
more.
end of the book in Deadhouse Gates. I can't remember who he's talking to, but I'm okay. Hold on. It's Shadow Throne. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Shadow Throne is talking to somebody and about Pust, and he's like, yeah, I don't trust him either. Like the fact that his own master is like, I don't know about this guy. Like that makes me laugh. Krupp,
And
I know
I mean,
there's more.
Ida's most recent comment, I think, is absolutely correct. Probably, he is being very consciously misleading and confusing and all of that. But I just don't enjoy it.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
I'm the
funny.
same with Krupp. I'm the same
He
with
can
Krupp.
be funny, but see, I would have thought that Krupp is more sleight of hand and is probably one of the smartest characters in the series. But
I think they're both sleight of hand. I think Krupp is sleight of hand by being witty, and Pust is sleight of hand by acting like he's insane.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Atticus.
Yeah.
Atticus.
He's I'm gonna have to go in a minute.
We're going to head off. We were going to just final thoughts. Final thoughts.
Book.
Who wants to start?
I'll
start.
Go ahead, Kathy.
My favorite book of 2024. And I cannot remember the last time I loved a book this much. And I suspect it might be one of my all-time favorite books, especially in a fantasy series. Usually I can't separate them because they become one giant story for me. But these books are quite distinctive. Memories of Ice is very different to this one. But I just adore this book and I want to read it again, but I've got to finish the series first. So definitely the best book I read last year. And if you guys in the chat have not read it, you need to read it. Yeah.
For me, this is my second or third favorite. Bone Hunters is my favorite. And then it's between this and Midnight Tides because I really like the Rulad storyline in Midnight Tide.
Oh, yeah.
Fair enough.
And I like the economic stuff in Midnight Tides, but I love the Chain of Dogs. So this one in Midnight Tides kind of swap back and forth between the second one. Nothing could be the Bone Hunters because
I love the Bone Hunters, yeah.
And everything after it is just so good. So it's certainly high up there. I've read this one. I've read the first three like 4 times. I'm a huge fan of this book.
Yeah.
This would probably be number 3 on my list. I don't know. My top 3, I consider them 1 because I don't really rank them amongst themselves. Bone Hunters, Memories of Ice, and this are all up there. Like, you know, they're top books. This is stunning. There are the things I have a really bad memory for books, especially in a series like this. I have a really bad memory for which bit comes in which book. What I remember from each book are moments, and there are so many like kick-ass, super traumatic amazing, memorable moments in this book,
Yeah.
like Squint and so on, and
The
the
dog.
sappers mining the river, and the sappers burying themselves in the ramp, and there's just so many moments in this book that that solidify. Like when I think this book, I have those moments clear in my head. I know that is Deadhouse Gates, and awesome book, amazing.
Yeah.
Story.
I think my final thought would just be as an encouragement. One of the things I think the larger Malazan community does as a disservice to this series is makes it out to be so much more intimidating than it actually is.
Mm.
And I think it's a disservice to the series because trust me, guys, if I can read it and get something out of it, y'all are fine. Like it's
Not that complicated.
No, there's a lot there. It's complex, but it is
Yes.
not an impossible read.
No.
It is not like there are so many storylines and characters to love in this series that I just think I really encourage people to just dive in and read it however you read best, and
take your time with it. Don't rush.
Yeah.
That's what I found worked for me was, and not because it's so complex, but simply that there is so much to take in.
Yeah.
And
there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on. The prose is so beautiful that at times I just have to stop and reread it because I loved Erikson's writing. But this is not a complicated series. It just takes a little bit of concentration. You do not need notebooks of notes or anything like that.
I always recommend to people, like, if you've ever read a mystery novel, the whole point of why you're reading it is to not know what happened until the end. Right. And approach Malazan with the same idea. Exactly. Like, you will get hints along the way, but there is a lot of stuff you may not understand immediately when it appears on the page.
Okay.
Relax, keep going. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I would say, I will say that it is easier to understand the second time through, even without having read the whole series. But also, Philip says just go and trust it. I say use the glossaries and the dramatis personae.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
I flip back and forth all the time between that, and I don't like. I have a hard time understanding some abstract stuff just in general, and that's okay. But like what's happening, there's just a lot. Like it's just a lot. Like it's not like it's not that challenging. It's just big.
It's just a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It's it's not the most difficult. Like we're not trying to read Ulysses, right? Like it's
James Stewart.
Well, I mean the difference between this and Ulysses is this is actually good.
Yeah. Yes. Totally agree with that.
Ulysses is trash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone. And thank you especially to you guys for coming and discussing one of my favorite books. I have so enjoyed this chat, and I hope that all of you in the chat have enjoyed it as well. And thank you once more to my lovely guests, to all of you.
I think I can speak for all three of us. Like, if you want us to talk about Malazan for hours on end, anytime, we're all here for it.
Cool. Well, then I will definitely be in touch about Memories of Ice. Yeah. I'm going to wait for you to finish it, Tori. And then we can talk about it. Yeah? Cool.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you all very much. I hope you all have a wonderful day. And thank you so much to all of you in the chat. You guys were fantastic. And I really appreciate it. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Kath.
Bye.